Hi, everybody. This is your friend and host for Life and Finances with Sacrifice and Service, Anthony Burrows. Now, sports and sporting events is something that we all enjoy. We always hear people say, and it's often said, sports is the true meritocracy. Either you can play or you can't play, and it's not who you know. Two sports I like to think of when thinking of nations such as the Bahamas and the surrounding nations. That's basketball and soccer. Now, for both sports, people often debate what makes a winning team. Basketball has 5 men aside, while soccer has 11 aside. The difference between the two sports, however, is obvious, and that's the size of the performance area that both sports take place on. In basketball, to be a winning team, all you need are 2 or 3 exceptional players with some others who they'll call role players to be on the team also. Now, soccer, on the other hand, requires that all 11 players be high quality. That is, if you intend to be a winning team. Soccer teams, I should say, are only as good as its weaker players. I should say weakest player. Basketball, on the other hand, is only as good as its best player. I like to look back in the past and think of the days growing up watching basketball. I can remember I refer to them as the Laker 1 team, and that's the team with Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor. Then you have Laker 2 team, which would be Kareem, Magic, and Worthy. Then you have Laker 3, which is just a 2-man team when you really look at it, which was Shaq and Kobe. Then you have Laker 4, that's LeBron and Anthony Davis. Now I just used the Lakers because of, I guess most people could kind of identify with them. And you can also think of the Heat team where they had the big 3, or the Celtic team when they had their big 3. And if you're really old, you can go back to the time when you had the big 2 for the Milwaukee Bucks, which was Kareem and, I forget his name. But anyhow, when you go back to those guys. But now, what is my point? Just as sports teams seek to get better, nations are daily doing the same thing by jostling for positions to have a larger share of the market for their countries and their goods and services. And their interest in the world is what they seek to protect, while ensuring that their citizens, their nationals, are afforded the best possible treatment when traveling or traversing our planet. For the Bahamas to become a nation where there's food on every table, electricity in all homes, job opportunities in abundance, with the possibility that all of you and I can own land, the land in which we live, and operate the business that was once a distant dream for our forefathers. Now, in order to realize these goals as a nation and as a people, we must function as if we are playing soccer and not basketball. Therefore, we must ensure that those who are last and least are never left behind. Because again, soccer is a sport you're only as good as your weakest player. Basketball, on the other hand, is a sport you're only as good as your best player. Now today, I wish to speak to you on the most important topic I've ever touched on, at least up to date. If I guess it's debatable, but you'll decide that. And I want to talk about election 22, life and death issues. Now let's look at number 1. We're going to look at it as we're going forward. Again, the Bahamas is a very small nation. We have 5,358 square miles of land for the Bahamas. And we have what's recorded as 393,000 persons. We know we're probably around 401. In reality, we are a speck on the globe. Therefore, the Bahamas fall into a category as an underdog nation. We are small with very little expectation of us. Most nations see us as a zero nation, have no expectation of us. Now, because of our size and our history, Many in the outside world expect that we'd be a nation of rampant poverty, low life expectancy, to be drowning in debt. And this brings me to the book of the week. And the book of the week this week, I know I haven't mentioned it for a while, but the book of the week this week is Malcolm Gladwell, David and Goliath. And you don't have to purchase it if you want to go to Amazon, but if you want to also, like I often do, go to YouTube, plug it in, and just listen to it for free. And you can listen to it at your pace, some today, some tomorrow, back and forth. See, the Bahamas, when viewed through ordinary eyes, is thought of as an underdog nation. Now, I like to look at the biblical account with David. And in the Bible, David is described as an underdog, when in reality, he had all the advantages. You see, Goliath expected that an Israelite warrior such as himself would come and meet him down in the valley with full armor, and they would conduct traditional warfare/duel. Instead, David's method of warfare was that of a shepherd protecting his flock of sheep. Small, nimble, and untraditional. And this is the road we got to take as a nation. We are small, let's be nimble and untraditional. You see, the rock from one of David's sling, as he spun that, had the impact at the level of a modern day handgun. Again, what is my point? Come back with me 3,000 years ago and see Israel on the mountain, the ridge really on the south side, and the Philistines on the north ridge with a valley in the middle. This was an all-out stalemate for if either side tried to attack the other and had to go down to the valley, they would then be at a deep and steep disadvantage and would lose. Hence, Goliath's proposal for a duel, where David, the underdog, had all the advantages. And we are in a situation, when you think about it as a nation, we are currently at a stalemate. You see, this Commonwealth of ours will be facing to date its most important election. The election of elections, people like to say. Again, therefore, my topic for today is Election 22, life and death issues. And number one, the first thing we have to ask is, the first issue for many is, are there really any issues? I can recall a conversation I had with some colleagues of mine. Both of them reside, or they may still reside, in Pinewood Garden. Now, what's the big challenge for Pinewood Garden? I don't even have to say it. Everybody know flooding. It is prone to flooding. The moment you get a high intensity of rain, which happens at least 4 times a year, maybe 3-4 times a year, depending on the year, they will flood. And so they were talking about around the last election, when the candidate who actually won the election came around, and as he was making his rounds, he stopped by the club where all of them were at, bought everybody a couple of rounds, stayed there, laughed, talked, shake some hands, slapped some backs and everything, and he won the election. So the guy said to me, one of them said to me, you know what, at least I get a drink out of him, because I know I ain't gonna see him no more. And I only thought to myself, Lord have mercy, you had the man there, and at no point did it occur to you to say, hey, let's fix this flooding situation that we're having, you know? And I want you to know the issues I'll be exploring are simply as I see them, and are not intended to be in support of any political party, any private interest, or any individual. I am just a regular Bahamian in love with having been born Bahamian in this Bahamas. You see, presently as a nation, in my opinion, we are at an all-time low. Now, the issues I'll highlight may bear this out as well as they may not. Like David, by unorthodox actions and ingenuity, we the people can raise this Commonwealth to the heights that our forefathers again intended it to be. Now, here we go. Number 2, the single most pressing issue to me is the cancellation/replacement of the International Persons Landholding Act of 1993. Now, when that bill was proposed, it was tremendously disguised. They pulled the wool over our eyes. We the people, they pulled the wool over our eyes. for the ignorant, the ill-advised, the uninformed, the greedy, or just a complete sellout / trade of things and persons. Bahamian, that's what this bill is about and has been ever since 1993, in my opinion. Originally, this bill was sold as the savior of the Bahamian economy because at the time, the economy was in a lag. Ever since, real estate prices have increased in some cases as much as 200%. Consumer price index has quadrupled. Rent has gone up by 300% since then. You see, there was no thought or deliberation ever given to the decision making regarding instituting and bringing this bill to the House. See, existing at the time was a golden opportunity for the employment of the unusual and the untraditional, meaning utilizing Bahamian money, Bahamian talents, Bahamian resources to grow the Bahamian economy. As a result, we are stuck with a high cost of living. Bahamians are unable to own land. We are a people in subjugation. Then, in many instances, we don't have access to our resources, such as the ocean, and we are locked on the interior of our land. Wow, what a state. See now, at the removal of this International Persons Act, I will suggest that we immediately reinstate the Immovable Properties Act. And you can do the research on all of that. And if you have any doubt, you can go back, go to Life and Finances with Sacrifice and Service on YouTube. And then you can thumb through and go through some of my previous posts, and you'd learn more about this. Now, the winners in this situation will be the middle to lower income Bahamians, which happens to be the majority of our population. The losers, on the other hand, will be foreigners, the highly wealthy Bahamians, and the real estate agencies who have benefited and gone laughing to the bank. The other item, number 4 now, is looking at issues life and death. Election 22 is the establishment of a National Health Insurance Board. It's estimated that as many as 80% of working Bahamians don't have health insurance. That's put us at a tremendous disadvantage. Hence, cookouts, car wash, bake sale, walkathon, sponsorships, and the list goes on. And the thing is, families are exhausting and depleting generational resources to address a right here and a right now medical issue. As a result of this system that's in place, we're losing vast potential persons to premature death. We have a lessened and a shrinked economy. See, the current NHI as it's sold to us is a fake and a fraud. Oh man, the true owners of our economy, the puppeteers, they don't wish that we have a National Health Insurance Board. They don't want it to happen because they are the owners of the insurance companies and agencies. See, a puppeteer is a person or persons who controls / manipulate an object, and in this case, persons, to create an illusion that the puppet is alive. Therefore, and the puppet in this case, you put in who you think the puppets are in this case that sold us this bill of good about this national health insurance. Therefore, this unsustainable, messy joke I call what they label as the NHI has been perpetrated upon us. Oh man. The thing is, it's drawing from the already inadequate national budget that we have. Yes, it covers doctor's visit and some lab works, and in some cases medicine, but it doesn't cover key items such as diagnostics, doesn't cover that, treatments, doesn't cover that, surgeries, doesn't cover that, therapy, doesn't cover that, Medivac flights, doesn't cover that, and the list goes on with the things that it doesn't cover. Now, here's the catch. Nothing of great value will ever be free. See, NIB as it is today was a dream 100 years in the making. And you can see the impact it's had on poverty as a poverty preventer and the help to the elderly, and we have seen what it's done for the unemployed. See, NIB isn't free. It's on a systematic basis, monthly, weekly, depending on how you draw your salary, and we pay into it. Always remember, sum total is this. You always get what you pay for. You always get what you pay for. And there are never no shortcuts, and definitely you don't get no free rides. If it's free, it ain't all good. I am saying we the people have to make this happen within the next year or two. Let's push for National Health Insurance Board. See, paying into a proper plan will mean, for us that is, better facilities. And PMH is just a rampant dump because it just lack resources. You'd have better equipment, longer life expectancy, better childhood for many, and then the possible alleviation of poverty in our country. Number 5, here we go, as we continue down this list. Financial education / literacy as the linchpin in our school curriculum. Now, this is my opinion here. The greatest challenge facing Western culture, in my opinion, is the absence / the lack of knowledge in regards to money. It's estimated that 90% of the homes worldwide never discuss money, never ever. And even wealthy persons in many instances do not discuss money. So it's estimated about 10% of homes around the world, and the Bahamas is no different. See, the thing is, schools don't teach or educate us about money. I'll look at myself personally. I entered the school system in 1965 and exited in the year 2000. And during that time, from primary school to college / university, at no time was money ever mentioned. And see, zero financial literacy is the single cause of massive debt, wastage of resources, as with governments as well as individuals, why we have such a large amount of persons who are working but are still poor, this excessive consumerism, rampant and always continued generational poverty, the poor health that we find among us as Bahamians, all come back to this financial literacy and no teaching of, handling your resources, in particular your money. You see, what has happened is that with schooling, it's a lack, and it's lacking in preparation for real life. See, daily financial decisions determines your future. Majority rule, 1967. 54 years and 11 elections later, the educational system still an unadulterated failure, and we're still sticking with the D+ average for what we're going on, 54 years. Yes, I understand. Plenty of the blame can be laid at the homes. Yes, I get that. But the thing is, the vast majority of parents just don't know any better. They just don't know. Now, 2 things we got to push for in the educational system. 1, and I've talked about this before, the formation of the Parents / Guardians Public Schools Union, and this will be where the parents and the guardians will form their own union, and you have, I think, if memory can serve me, 70 to 90,000 students in that system. So you're looking at least 40,000 parents. Presently, the teachers got all the power. We're going to take the power from the teachers and give it to the parents, and then the students will then have more say. The second item is the teaching and the handling of money with a view now to long-term effect, with the emphasis on land ownership, entrepreneurial discovery, personal finances, and long-term planning. And of course, this will start from kindergarten straight on up to grade 12, and it's going to be grade level appropriate. The winners in this case will be the lower and the middle class Bahamians, which again are the majority who are in the public school system. Let the private schools, if they don't turn out these worthless doctors, lawyers, and whatever that you have, forgive me for referring to them as worthless, but when you look on their productivity in our society, it adds up a lot of times as worthless. And then the public system will then start to turn out generators and producers in our nation, which will then move us to a higher level. And see now, with the winners, you get a higher standard of living. We'll get a larger and expanded economy, local ownership of the economy, higher levels of personal saving, lower levels of crime, because more citizens would be vested in both the nation and its economy. You see, the thing is, 75% of high school leavers enter the job market. They got to come out with skills to be able to immediately earn a living. Oh man. Now the losers will be the vulture banks, the greedy merchants, and the shallow politicians. Those will be your losers. In essence, there'll be no meaningful losses for the nation. And that particular generation will squash the national debt and demand accountability among us. Then we come to item number 6 in terms of when you're looking at issues, life and death, election 22. And you have the big talk, natural resources / sovereign wealth fund establishment, BPC, the Newport deal, upcoming airports, Arawak Port, BTC, BPL, Aragonite mining, fisheries, the land, Cable Bahamas, etc. As we go on and on. All of these, the vast majority of these resources are in the hands of foreigners or sitting in the hands of one or two wealthy Bahamians. Now let's look at some worldwide sovereign wealth funds. Kuwait Investment Authority, established in 1953, well before I was born. And there they have at their disposal right now $592 billion resulting from oil. Saudi Arabia Monetary Agency, 1952, $668 billion. China Investment Corporation, 2007, $746 billion. Abu Dhabi, 1976, $773 billion. Norway Petroleum Fund, 1990, $882 billion, now known as the Government Pension Fund. Qatar, $256 billion in their sovereign wealth fund. Hong Kong, $418 billion, established in 1993. Trinidad has a sovereign wealth fund currently with $6 billion. Only the Lord one knows what they're doing with that. Well, education is free in Trinidad, but crime and poverty is still rampant. And of course, Trinidad is a nation with a racial divide there of Indians and blacks. Only the Lord one knows how they're putting that to use, because they should be in a better position. You got the money, start using it for the good of the people. Guyana is about to start a sovereign wealth fund. And of course, they've been having politicians squabble and back and forth because everybody trying to rip it off. But so plenty shadows surrounding theirs. I don't know how that's going to come off. You see, what those other countries I mentioned did, and there's many other countries, they were able to pull their citizens out of poverty and elevated their countries to the highest possible standard of living. Some nations actually cut checks annually while others invest in infrastructure such as school, hospitals, healthcare, free utilities, and on and on. You see, now we've been hearing about the oligarchs as people talk about this. And I put it this way, every country has them. In years past in the US, they were referred to as the robber barons. Now today in the US media, they hype them as the innovative entrepreneurs. They start out as the innovative entrepreneurs. When they get the big company, then they start to control the politicians, control situations, and squash competition. But like I said, they are found in every country on this planet. Now, what's an oligarch? An oligarch is an individual or individuals, normally business people with a tremendous amount of political influence. Then an oligarchy, that's a different thing, means that you are governed by the few. This is a small and privileged group for corrupt or selfish purposes. Now, you have to determine in your own mind if this kind of fits us. The winners in this case would be the people. The losers would be the corrupt minority. See, the issues raised, this issue of the sovereign wealth fund has been raised by many Bahamians, and Bahamians want to say, you know what, let me take a look-see. Personally, I'm not the biggest supporter of giving out checks, especially when we have such overwhelming needs as a people. Then let's go look at number 7 when you're looking at issues. Age of consent. You know the age of consent in the Bahamas is 16. So a girl can lay down and get pregnant at 16 for any person. And hey, she is off age. But the thing is, she can't vote for her child how she wanted to go. She's too young to be employed. So she can't get a job to take care of her child. You see, this age of consent is creating generational poverty. Then you have generating also the working poor, is contributing to crime as well as further unemployment. Oh man, we got to get to work. So in this instance, we got to either we raise the age of consent, or we got to lower the age for employment to 16, lower the age for voting to 16, and so on and so forth, so that a 16-year-old girl can take care of her baby. Then let's look at number 8. The largest, these just going to be some brief mention. The largest elephant in the room of this Bahamas is the civil service / quasi entities. Government pay out $900 million per annum, basically $1 billion per annum in salary for the pathetic, atrocious service that they provide us. Only 2 areas I have found to give good service in the civil service entities. That's the passport office and road traffic department. Then item number 9, we have the deepening of democracy in our Commonwealth. This is another life and death issue, because you have to have a shared power with the legislative and the executive branch. Personally, I think we need to weaken the power and the position of the prime ministership. Then we have to put an end to lifetime pension and health insurance for politicians. While they are in office, yes, you can give them the pension and insurance, but once they are moved on, they are out of service, you go back to private life. And then another item when it comes to deepening democracy, we need to have real local government where you have full budget and have autonomy over the areas in which you're governing. And then the last item I want to touch on, of course, will be food production, and that goes without saying. And all I can say now, may the God of heaven and his son bless and prosper you, and I'll see you again next time. Election 22, life and death issues. God bless you.